So now we have Author from Alt AC ordered these solutions. So now we want to make sure, as Patrick mentioned, that he's tax compliant on these products that were bought. So we have Ronnie from Avalara showing you that piece of the puzzle as we go through this distribution journey and how tax is calculated and how they don't have to worry about sales tax compliance. So welcome, Ronnie.
Welcome, thank you. And let's hope everything works appropriately with the boxes as well.
The infamous boxes, but you don't have any, so you're good.
Perfect. And you can see my screen. That means you can see it. That's awesome.
Yes.
So we'll get right into it as well because we've got limited time here, I think, for all of us. Make sure that we get through all of this. So essentially what I want to talk about is ensuring all of your tax compliance through our range of affiliated, basically attached solutions with respect to Acumatica. First, before we get into all of that, of course, I just want to talk a little bit about Avalara from a very high level perspective so that people know a little bit more about us. We've been in business since 2004. I'm actually an original. I was there when the company was created. Now we have, instead of 8 people like we had when I started, we have over 4,400 people in 23 offices globally. And in 2021, when we last published these numbers as a public company, we had well over 30,000 customers across 95 countries, and we processed 33.5 billion tax calculations per year. And inclusive of the fact that we managed over 30 million documents, those are exemption certificates, and processed over 4.5 million tax returns on behalf of our clients. So as far as finances are concerned, since 2018, we've grown and continue to grow 37% year over year. So it's a big number, and we are currently owned by Vista Equities, if any of you know anything about Vista Equities. So we're a strong, growing company, essentially. We're really happy to be in this particular market space because we think it cries out for a solution in terms of being able to handle compliance for our clients. So what does that talk about? What does that mean? So from your perspective, and I'm not going to go through these slides in detail because we're providing the slides to you and you can go through this material in detail yourself. But essentially for you, tax compliance is all about first understanding what your tax obligations are. In other words, where do you have nexus within the context of, in particular, the United States, and in other countries where you have a requirement to file and remit, obviously, sales taxes. That is not as easy as it used to be. It used to be a conversation that was revolved around physical nexus or a physical presence within a particular state or location within a state. That's now become really complex because there's now also other things that can impact your nexus, like warehouse inventory, remote employees, affiliate relationships, e-commerce and marketplace sales, tax-exempt customers and sales, and essentially anything that's a remote sale into a jurisdiction that has what's called an economic nexus threshold. So big conversation, something to really understand yourself about your situation so that you know how to equip yourself to deal with it. The next step out of that would be to register, to collect, report, and remit sales tax. Understand that there are some plans in effect in the US. One is called SST for streamline sales tax that Avalara is a certified provider for, which dramatically lessens the cost of compliance to the clients that use that particular system. It basically requires you to use a certified provider, but allows you to save tremendous costs with regard to the manner in which the system is priced. And that's because the states pay us directly instead of you paying us. After the registration and that type of thing, clearly what you have to do is track and manage your sales to any of your clients, and in particular your exempt customers, right? And I'm sorry, the screens didn't show the little, let's see if I've got, there we go. Track and manage the sales to your, not only your taxable clients, but also your exempt clients. And this has become a really important part because of the discussion around economic nexus, but essentially a lot of our clients that are becoming clients now have never had to consider even collecting exemption certificates, because in many of the places where they sold to, they didn't have any form of nexus. But now, because of these new forms of nexus, they have nexus there, and that requires them to, even if all their clients are exempt, it requires them to collect the exemption certificates. So it's a big load that's required, and essentially that's solved as well. And that's something that you have to do. Then you need to be able to collect the correct sales tax with regard to the transactions that you're creating, which is exactly what we do. And we're going to take a look at how that's done. And then the last step of that, let's call it the last mile, is being able to file your returns and remit your sales taxes. So a lot of people think as well, that's kind of easy. You know, I'm in one state and I've got one document or something like that. But the filing document, the cycles, the frequency, the payment time cycles, all of that changes from state to state and sometimes from jurisdiction to jurisdiction within the state. So it's immensely complex if you are in multiple states. And there's some states where if you're just in one state, it's immensely complicated already. So it sort of behooves you to stay in front of that and be able to basically point to a systemized version or manner in which you're doing this. Whether you're using our system or not, it just calls out for something for you to make sure that you're not spending a ton of your personal time on, right? So how do we help with sales tax compliance? We have a suite of products and services, essentially, that allow us to assist our clients. And you can see sort of what our core products are. Those happen to be the exemption certificate management components that are integrated to basically all of the vendors that we are inside of, the tax calculation itself, the returns and the reporting, and now something that some of you may be familiar with if you deal with any VAT related countries. And in some countries, they have what's called e-invoicing and live reporting, which is sort of an extension of the system into government reporting directly. So the government, the state, knows exactly which transactions have occurred within your company real time. So we manage that as well for our clients coming to a country near you. Supporting products that are that we have as well that support this effort are licenses and registration. We have a tax research product, item classification product for companies doing international sales, cross-border duties and tariff-related products, and 1099 and W9, and a property tax division. We're integrated across numerous different interfaces, including ERPs like Acumatica and other e-commerce systems like K-e-commerce, etc. And then as well through professional services that we provide to our clients as well. The one that I talked about, the streamline sales tax, plus as well we do sales tax risk assessments for our clients, implementation, training, and support. Everything you see with a little M on it here in the dark little M basically just signifies that we provide those services on a managed service basis. In other words, you basically don't have to do anything. We actually become the provider of that service internally inside of your company, so you've outsourced that entirely. We're integrated directly into Acumatica. Acumatica has written the integration into its own system using our APIs. So it's a very good, very robust integration. We're going to be looking at 2024 R1 in terms of the version of the system that we're integrated to in terms of my demonstration. So, and now we're going to jump into that. So I'm just going to change screens here really quickly into my Acumatica screen. So in terms of what we're looking at with Acumatica, like I said, we're integrated already sort of at the core code in terms of all of the transactions that occur inside of the system. So what I'm going to do, just to make it really simple, is we're going to go to a transaction that was already started by Patrick earlier in the e-commerce system. And it's basically the same transaction. There's one product line that is not in this particular transaction that was in his. This is essentially the same sales order that came off of the e-commerce system and got populated into or synced into Acumatica. So understand that in terms of the processes that we use and where we are invoked and calculate sales tax is in all of quotes, sales orders, and invoicing. So, and in invoicing, it's the concept of not only the shipment, but also the release of the invoice within Acumatica, which is a little bit different from some of the other systems. Essentially, once we have the information in a document regarding the products that you are selling and where you're selling to, right, all that is required to do is to save the document for us to be able to generate what the tax amounts are. So you can see there is a tax total on here already. This was sold to the same location that was in the example, the previous example, into Indiana, which means that it was the least exciting state we could possibly sell it into. There's just a state rate, right? There's many different jurisdictions underneath this rate, but it's just a state rate that counts in terms of the calculation of that tax amount. But let's suppose the customer's online, and as you know, in business happens, and they say, you know what, and this is one that they're going to bill, and rather than pay for online, and they say, you know what, I don't want you to send it there. I want you to send it to my West location, which is in Seattle, right? So we're going to be going to the Seattle location instead of the standard location. You can see that my tax total now tells me that my tax is not up to date because it has not calculated it for Seattle. The only thing that I require to do for the entire system is press save, and it goes out to our system. Essentially what it's doing is it took all of the details that are on this document, pushed it to our system, to our cloud service. We provided the answers that you're looking at here, because that's where we sold this to Washington, and we populated that directly into Acumatica. So very, I mean, this is all real time that this is occurring behind the scenes with regard to how all of this occurs for your clients on their documents as you're processing them. Okay, inclusive of, like you just saw, inclusive of any changes that you do to that document at the time, so that we see those changes immediately and are able to process any kind of ramifications for you. In terms of what we are able to see, I'm going to jump into a client file and just show you as well how we handle those clients who have exemption certificates. So directly from Acumatica, what Acumatica has done is, it's actually super clever. They've integrated some of the functions that we use inside of our cloud service directly into Acumatica so that you can use those functions inside of Acumatica. Now, what are those? Those are, first and foremost, we have the ability to validate addresses everywhere in the system, right? And that's the same thing with KE-commerce. But as well, with respect to the exemption certificates, you can create the client in our system as an exempt client. Now, this client is already an exempt client in our system. And then you can also look at the status of this particular client. Like, do I have an exemption certificate for them? For where? Is it valid or not? So through this process, you can see, I can actually see which exemption certificate I have for this client. If I want to, I just clicked on the link there. I can bring it into view, into my system. And this is basically pulling into view a PDF of that certificate from our cloud service directly into Acumatica. And then as well, if I am in another jurisdiction for this particular client and I wish to request a further exemption certificate from them, I can request the exemption certificate directly from Acumatica. So I don't have to leave the application for this. This email would be the client's email, but I don't have one for this particular example, but that's the email that would be pulled into there. We have numerous templates in our system, and that's what you're looking at here with regard to what it is that you'd be requesting. And then you'd be selecting one of the states that you're located in and the reason for the exemption for that particular client, and press the request button, that triggers a process from our system to get the exemption certificate for the client. And then you can see what the results were when that information is received inside of Acumatica. So a huge amount of functionality within the system with regard to creating exempt clients and then managing them directly from Acumatica as well. And then we provide further bulk or campaign style management of all of those clients inside of our system, inside of our cloud service. So that's where we're going to jump to next really quickly. And of course, I've timed out. So hang on a second. So this is where we're starting. This is the landing page for our interface. So we call this, variously the dashboard. Sometimes we call this the Avalara portal. We immediately address from the perspective of your landing page any areas of concern that you should be concerned with regard to you having exceeded the economic thresholds, and in other words, have a requirement to remit in new jurisdictions for economic nexus purposes, right? All of the settings that you typically would have inside of Acumatica are here. In other words, where is it that I have nexus? The types of products I'm selling. Like, for example, if you're a company that sells software or software as a service like we do, you tell us within the context of what it is that you're selling, and this is in any application that we're talking about, you tell us that that's a special product. Hey, it's software as a service, and so we don't tax it when you sell it into California, and we do tax it when you sell it into New York, and we tax it at 80% of all the jurisdictions that are relevant when you sell it into Texas. That's because we know what you sell and buy. And so for the Canadians in the group, there are over 3,500 product taxability codes that are possible in the US, not including nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals, and food items. So when you add those, it's a spectacular number. And that's spread across the possibility of 14,000 different jurisdictions. We manage all of those on a state level basis. It's really simple. All you do is click a box to tell us that you have nexus in a particular jurisdiction, and we then collect in that jurisdiction on your behalf, right? So I've just gone into the US section here, shows where it is I'm collecting sales tax, and as well if I'm collecting any additional taxes and fees in those jurisdictions. The information that you have on your documents, like that information that we looked at in Acumatica with that detailed tax information, if that's an invoice, it's already in our system. So there's no need to provide any kind of further information manually into our system for the purposes of reporting. So essentially, because you invoiced it, we saw it, we know if it's in a state that you're remitting and reporting in, and then it is here in terms of the information for the returns for which we can provide all of the returns on your behalf, or the ones that you don't want to do yourself, or whatever the case may be. But we can provide those for all states in the US, including all locals and home rule jurisdictions. And if you're looking at the exemption certificate component, and you do have a lot of clients that are exempt, in this part of our program, we essentially allow you to do bulk campaign style management of those exemption certificates so that you're always able to keep the health of your environment in terms of the status of the documents that you're maintaining as well as possible, as good as possible. The kinds of things that you need to do typically are reach out to clients in bulk that have exemption certificates that are going to expire. We can create those as tasks here. We also create tasks for clients that are missing exemption certificates. And all of these can be addressed either by you individually from here, or they can be automated on your behalf entirely so that you don't even need to see this part of the program, because we can outsource that to ourselves, and our managed services group will perform all of those duties on your behalf, okay? And then the last part that's just to note here, and this is really important for a lot of you that do I'm going to say like drop shipping and that type of thing, is that we have a resource section with a bunch of answers in here that really let you understand a lot of the nuances that are involved on a state-by-state basis. Like, for Alabama, is there a required renewal period? Yes, there is, right? Does the state require an in-state sales tax registration number on a resale certificate in Alabama? In other words, will they accept a different resale certificate from someone who's drop shipping into that state? No, they don't require an in-state sales tax account number. So things like that are always burning issues for you are answered immediately through our resource section inside of our system. And that's what we're going to go through today with regard to the sales tax component, Amy.
Okay.